Hello and welcome to our BSLNewsround13. Today we're celebrating our International Mother Language Day. So far we've had 4 amazing speakers and I've never seen anything like it before. But we're not finished yet. Take a look behind me. We have some really great interviews coming up, but for now, let's leave them to it. So, I'm here to interview one of our fascinating speakers from this morning, who has had a very different experience. Let me introduce you to Mangai Sutterson. I hope I've spelt that right.
Yes.
So, how do you feel about your presentation today?
Well, since I was invited to present just over a month ago, I've been very busy with my family and my children. So I spent the weekend just gone preparing. And it was through this that I looked back at my life and realised it's been quite difficult. It's been quite a struggle. So standing up there today, I was very nervous. However, the presentation went smoothly. At the end, I looked back and I thought to myself, my life has been split into 2, and I couldn't choose one world, either the deaf world or the Tamil world.
So you feel that the languages you speak are divided between your family and your work, but do you have a preference of where your heart lies?
That's a really difficult question to ask, and I couldn't answer because I need both languages and they both have a place in my heart. I grew up speaking Tamil. However, in my work life and my social life, I use BSL. However, at home with my family, I speak Tamil. So I couldn't split myself between the 2. I have to speak both.
But what a wealth of languages you have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So we're here with one of our participants from the day, who's originally from New Zealand. What have you thought of the day overall?
It's been great. The organisation has been brilliant. The food was brilliant. Thank you for that. The deaf and hearing presenters opening up about their lives. That was really interesting. And the workshop I've just been to on the metaphors and idioms, that was really interesting. There was the open discussions with both deaf and hearing people, all in BSL. It was really interesting for me because obviously it's a new language for me, so I'm still learning it and processing it. So it was really valuable for me to come.
Okay, so thinking about your origins in New Zealand, what language do you speak there?
Do you mean sign language?
Well, what do you think of as your first language?
I have 2. There's English and spoken Samoan. I'll just spell that for you. Have you heard of that?
No.
Well, Samoa is an island north of Australia and New Zealand. I grew up with both of those languages there.
So, which do you prefer of the 2?
Well, my family are fluent in both Samoan and English, so they're bilingual. I wasn't confident as I was younger, but when I got older, I became more proficient in both and comfortably use both spoken languages. But when I'm interpreting, I prefer English as the spoken language. I can't use Samoan sufficiently now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, we've interviewed 2 participants so far, and now let's welcome our 3rd participant. Hello.
Hi there.
Thank you for taking the time to be interviewed.
You're welcome.
I'm really interested to learn of your experience today. I believe you work as an interpreter, but not in your native language, right?
That's right.
So, how do you feel about today's events?
Well, for me, I'm from the Czech Republic, and that's my first language, which I have from birth. I learned sign language there for about 5 years at university, but sign language isn't used there very much, or certainly not in interpreting. So I decided to come to the UK and I developed my BSL skills to interpreting level. And so I've worked as an interpreter here. And at the same time I was studying English. So I learned them in parallel, the 2 languages. So that's meant that I'm working in 2 languages which aren't my native language of Czech, which is my mother tongue. And that means that It's affected my production of English, which I know is a weakness for me, and I know I need to develop certain elements of that and bring my level of English up. I certainly watch other interpreters and assess myself against them, and I know that I need to develop that area.
So that means you've become a BSL interpreter, but not a Czech Sign Language interpreter.
No, that's right, I never worked there.
So working in BSL, does that mean you use your Czech Sign Language a lot less?
Well, yes, because I never worked in the Czech Republic as a sign language interpreter. I've come to England and I've used BSL probably for the last 12 years now, and so I have forgotten some of my Czech sign language, but I know it's still there in the back of my mind somewhere, and I'm able to call upon it when I go home.
Well, thank you for your time and such an interesting story.
You're welcome.
So, before we go to our last speaker, let's speak to one of our deaf participants and ask for her views of the day. So, what have you thought of the event overall?
Well, today is very different from what I expected. When I first saw the name of the event, Mother Language Day, and from what I read about the event before I arrived, I saw that one speaker was from Australia and another was from Italy. So I thought we might learn some foreign languages and some foreign sign language. However, when I arrived at the event, I realised it was different, and they were actually talking about their upbringing in their home countries and their experience of their home languages. But it was still just as interesting. I also enjoyed the last presenter, Marco Nardi, looking at how he worked between English and other languages. That was very interesting. And it was good to look at it from a different perspective. I also enjoyed sharing our own experiences.
Do you mean in the workshops?
Yes, and just before this as well. It made me really think about myself and my own upbringing. And I realised that I'm actually bilingual.
Bilingual? So your first language is BSL, and what's your second?
Actually, I used spoken English as well as fingerspelling. I didn't do BSL as I'm from Scotland.
Of course, the education is different.
Yes, but I'm still bilingual. And this afternoon was great as well, the relay workshop.
The deaf relay interpreting workshop.
Yes, and I thought about working as a relay in the future.
You'd like to become a deaf interpreter? Are you thinking about it?
Yes, looking into that area of work more. So I really appreciated coming today.
I'm glad you felt it was worthwhile, but don't forget this will be an annual event.
Do let me know about next year.
Oh, I definitely will. So, here we are at our last interview, but we have saved one of the most exciting speakers until the end, as he's fluent in 6 languages. Let me introduce you to Marco.
Hello, hello.
Well, your wealth of experience in 6 languages is fascinating.
Thank you.
Of all the languages you know, if you had to pick one as your mother language, what would it be?
It would have to be English and BSL because I use both of them every day.
So you think of English as your first language?
No, neither of my first language actually. My first language is Italian. That's spoken Italian.
Wow, so from your speech we heard that you speak 6 languages, 3 of which are spoken. That's English, French and Spanish. How do you process those into signed languages?
Okay, let me just clarify. The sign languages that I know are Italian, BSL and international. I speak a little Spanish and French. And how do I cope with all these languages? Well, I have to separate them to ensure that there is no overlap. When I was younger, I did used to get confused between all the languages. But as I've grown up, I've learned how to separate them. It's like they each have their own little file. So you just need to go to the right file, and it's clearer that way for me.
Okay, I understand. Okay, so what have you thought about the event overall?
Well, I've been very fortunate so far. I've attended many different events throughout my career.
Yes, you are very lucky.
That's true. They've all been a huge benefit to me. For example, I attended a World Federation of the Deaf Conference, the WFD, which was a beautiful experience. It really opens your eyes. Many deaf people go from around the world, so you get introduced to many different sign languages.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Well, this conference has been phenomenal. From the speakers to the workshops to the in-depth discussions and the participants' feedback, truly inspirational. But remember, 21st of February 2013, we'll be back. So see you there.